welcome to the May 18th regular meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. We're actually going to begin our meeting today with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Plyler. And if you're able, I'd like to ask you to stand, join me in a moment of silence, and pledge. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an opportunity today to actually hear from Dr. Janet Spriggs, the president of Forsyth Tech College, and she's going to kind of sandwich it in at budget time. She's going to review her annual budget first. So thank you for being here, Dr. Spriggs. Always appreciate your service and the great presentations that you make, and I'm sure this will be no exception. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will certainly do our best. The first test is if I can remember how to call up our
You got it.
project, and I think I'm doing better with this, Ashley. Wonderful, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here to talk to you about our budget request for fiscal 2023-2024. I actually have with me today our Chief Finance and Operations Officer, Ms. Kizzy Lee, and I'm going to ask Kizzy to come up and go through the detail with you, but just to summarize by way of introduction, we are asking for a 5% increase. However, 4% of that is what we anticipate that we might be able to get in salary increases from the state legislature. And as you know, we like to make sure that all of our employees are treated the same with salary increases. And so we would ask that that money be held for us until we know what the state budget is going to look like. And then we would come back and make a formal request to have that money for our salary increases. The other 1% of that 5 is really related to the additional costs that we are experiencing in supplies and materials due to inflation. And Kizzy will come up now and go through the detail, and then I'll be happy to come back and close us out and answer any questions that you may have.
As she comes up, may I point out that if you are shocked by what she says, there's a whole room full of EMS people. Yeah. So you don't have a thing to worry about.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. First, I'd like to start with the operating budget request. As you'll see, that our personnel services, as Dr. Spriggs mentioned, would increase by approximately $500,000, and that is to help support the potential 4% increase along with the associated benefits. Also, our supplies and materials increase is related to the expected inflation and higher costs for those items. Overall, our total budget request is $551,131, which is 5% over last year. Next up is our capital budget. As a reminder, we do receive $455,000 per year for our capital outlay expenses. We do plan to spread that across our land improvements, several buildings at our main campus, as well as our Northwest Forsyth location, and also to replace vehicles that's already on our replacement list for that year. So overall, we're expecting, hoping for a 4%, as Dr. Spriggs mentioned, and for our state budget, we'd like to treat our county employees the same and afford them the same opportunity for that increase. That also includes the associated benefits along with that salary increase, and an estimate of $41,845 for operational expenses due to price inflation, resulting in a total increase of $551,131. We're happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Sure. And so as you see, we are not asking for a lot of money in addition this year. We have been very blessed and grateful to have a lot of federal stimulus dollars over the past couple of years that we have maximized and used for a lot of, many of the expenses that we were able to use those for were typically county-funded expenses. So we feel like we did a really good job of maximizing the use of those dollars. We have some additional capital money through what is called SCIF, that is state dollars that were given to us that we are utilizing for some larger capital improvement and capital projects as well. So we are here today just to present this and again to answer any questions that you may have. I will note that we have already experienced increases in supplies, materials, and things like electrical costs, just basically because that's where we are right now with our economy.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Spriggs?
Yes, Chairman, I do. Hi, Dr. Spriggs. Thank you for being here. And hi, Kizzy. My first time meeting you. Nice to meet you as well. During your the ARPA process, did you, in the increases, did you provide any salary increases with that ARPA funding?
We were not, the funding that we received.
Yes,
we could not use that money for salary
Okay, I
increases,
just-
or salaries at all, except for temporary positions. So we could use some of our federal money to pay for positions that were specifically, they were very regulated on what we could pay for, but it had to only be for those temporary periods of time. And I should have mentioned, we have to spend all of our federal money by June of this year.
Right.
So we just have another month to go on that.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. That was helpful.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chairman.
Other questions? I've got one short one. Are you expecting any, and I'm assuming you also participate in all these sort of security kind of special state appropriations for, safety issues, various choices. Are you anticipating some funds in that category this year?
We have not, to my knowledge, been notified that we are going to get any funding like that. In the House budget and the Senate budget that have been released, there is nothing that comes to community colleges for that. There's a lot of money that comes to us to help support tuition costs and to help pay for some new programming, but nothing for security this year. So I'm not aware of anything.
Yeah, K-12 has a fair amount, and that's a significant amount, actually.
We have a 3:30 conference call this afternoon that to go over the proposal from the Senate. We've already, of course, gone through the House budget, and there's nothing that's been given to community colleges as of yet.
Got it.
But I can check into that because
No, I was just curious. I was curious because that came up at the school budget issues, because the Senate does have a fair amount of money, and so does the House, both.
Yeah. We are allowed by state legislation to use up to 2% or 3%, 3% of our state budget to pay for security costs, and we do use that to offset security costs at the college. But that's an ongoing legislation.
Got it. Well, hearing no other questions, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
First item on our agenda is a public hearing on the zoning petition of Keith Gerald Martin from G1 to RS40. We'll have a review by Mr. Chris Murphy, Planning and Development Services Director. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have briefed this item twice before, but the public hearing is today, and this is case F-1630, which is a request to rezone 3.89 acres on the northwest and southeast sides of Hammock Farm Road, south of Old Walkertown Road, from general use GI to general use RS40. This is the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area Plan map. It is located in the GMA4 Future Growth Management Area. This is the subject property highlighted in yellow on the location map. Again, you see Hammock Farm Road, which does bisect the property, and the property is currently zoned GI, but it is adjacent to RS40 property and some RS9 property as well. Subject property outlined in yellow on the countywide aerial imagery. This is the subject property shown on the Walkertown Area Plan update, which was approved by the Commissioners in the 2010s. It recommends low-density, single-family residential on the subject property. This is the next several slides are some images from the property. This is looking at the southeast portion of the subject property. That's Hammock Farm Road that goes through there, bisects the property. So this is the longer, narrow piece on the southeast side of Hammock Farm Road, and there's a smaller piece on the northwest side, which we're looking at here. This is, again, looking eastbound. The subject property is on both sides of the road. See the zoning sign there in the background. In summary, the proposed RS40 district would replace the industrial zoning that is out of character with the surrounding area. The Walkertown Area Plan Update does recommend single-family residential land use at this location. The proposed request is generally consistent with the area plan and with Legacy 2030. This was heard by the Planning Board at their April 13th, 2023 public hearing. There were no speakers in opposition, and the Planning Board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of the request. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any question.
Questions for Chris? Thank you very much. This is a public hearing, and speakers will have up to 15 minutes total to speak in favor of this request and up to 15 minutes total to speak in opposition. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Seeing none, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that zoning map amendment F 1630 be approved on the basis of the following. The proposed general use zoning map amendment as petitioned by Keith Gerald Martin to rezone a 3.89 acre piece of property from GI General Industrial to RS40 residential single family minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet is consistent with the recommendations of the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and reasonable or in the public interest because, 1, the subject property, a large lot with a single-family dwelling and related outbuildings located at 234 Hammock Farm Road, is currently zoned GI and is adjacent or near property zoned RS40, GI, MH, and RS9, with nearby uses consisting of a single-family house, manufactured homes, vacant land, a railroad line, and warehouses. 2, the proposed RS40 zoning is intended to accommodate single-family detached dwellings on large lots without access to public water and sewer services in growth management areas 4 and 5 and in older large lot developments in growth management areas 2 and 3. And 3, the proposed RS40 zoning is consistent with the Walkertown Area Plan Update, which recommends single-family housing with up to 8 units per acre for the site. The subject property is located in an area with large lot development in Growth Management Area 3. The property does not have access to public water and sewer, and the proposed zoning is consistent with the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and with proximate zoning and surrounding uses.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Plyler. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The second item on the agenda is the zoning petition of Charles Grubb and Shannon Grubb from RS9 to RS20. Again, Mr. Murphy, our Planning and Development Services Director, will give us a brief overview.
Good afternoon again. Yes, this also has been previously briefed twice. This is a petition of Charles Grubb to rezone a 24.24 acre parcel on the west side of Follinsby Road, south of Bridgeton Road, from general use zoning RS9 to general use zoning RS20. This is a subject property shown on the countywide Legacy Growth Management Area Plan. It is located within the Suburban Neighborhoods GMA3 Growth Management Area. Subject property highlighted in yellow, again on the west side of Follinsby Road, just south of Bridgeton Road. Subject property outlined in yellow on the countywide aerial imagery. You notice that it is predominantly wooded with some pasture land. There are a few structures which are farm-related and a residential structure there along Follinsby Road, which we'll see images of in just a second. The subject property is located within the South Suburban Area Plan Update, which was adopted by the city and the county back in 2018, and it does recommend low-density, single-family residential uses in the area. So the request is consistent with that. This is looking north along Follinsby Road. The subject property is on the left-hand side of this image. You see the zoning sign. This is looking south down Follinsby Road. Again, the site is on the right. This is looking into the northern portion of the site. You see a single-family residential structure there. This is looking into the southern portion of the site. There are some agricultural buildings, including a barn and some other outbuildings on the subject property. This is looking across Follinsby Road from the site. This is not part of the request, but it's looking across Follinsby at what's on the other side of the road. In summary, the request is consistent with Legacy in that it supports a mixture of housing densities and types in the area. The South Suburban Area Plan Update does recommend single-family residential land use at this location, and that is what is being requested. The site does have access to public water and sewer. This was heard by the Planning Board also at their April 13th, 2023 public hearing. There were no speakers in opposition, and the Planning Board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this request to the Commissioners. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Very much. This is a public hearing, and speakers will have up to 15 minutes total to speak in favor of this request, up to 15 minutes total to speak in opposition. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this request? See none. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? All right. Declare the public hearing closed, and do we have a motion, please?
Move approval of the request.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve zoning map amendment F 1631 and a statement of consistency with comprehensive plan. I move that the zoning map amendment F 1631 be approved on the basis of the following. The proposed general use zoning map amendment as petitioned by Charles Grubb and Sharon Grubb to rezone a 24.24 acre piece of property from RS9 residential single family minimum lot size of 9,000 square feet to RS20 residential single family minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet is consistent with the recommendation of the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and reasonable or in public interest because, number one, the subject property, mostly undeveloped land with two single-family houses and related outbuildings located at 4660 and 4700 Follinsby Road, is currently zoned RS9 and is adjacent or near property zoned RS9 with nearby uses consistent with single-family homes, a golf course, and undeveloped land. The proposed RS20 zoning is intended to accommodate single-family detached dwelling in suburban areas where public water is available in growth management areas 2, 3, and 4. And number 3, the proposed RS20 zoning is consistent with the South Suburban Area Plan Update, which recommends single-family housing with up to 8 units per acre for the site. The subject property is located in the Growth Management Area 3. The property has access to public water and sewer, and its proposed zoning is consistent with the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and with proximate zoning and surrounding uses.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a resolution recognizing May 21st through the 27th, 2023 as National EMS Week in Forsyth County, North Carolina. And Commissioner McDaniel is coming forward to read it. And I'd like to invite Joel Hunley, the Emergency Services Director, actually to come here and receive the resolution. And he is joined by a few EMS personnel and actually the 18-member class of the EMS recruits. So, Commissioner McDaniel, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. It brings me pleasure to present today the National EMS resolution. Whereas the emergency medical services is a valid public service, whereas the members of the emergency services team provide exemplary medical care, treatment, ambulance transportation to the citizens of Forsyth County 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Whereas access to quality emergency medical care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rates of those who experience sudden illness or injury. Whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-the-hospital care, including preventative medicine and follow-up care through community pre-pandemic medicine and access to telemedicine as well. Whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency medical technicians, advanced emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, emergency medical dispatchers, emergency physicians, emergency nurses, educators, and administrators, and others. That's a lot. Whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of the emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. And whereas the Forsyth County Boards of Commissioners is committed to a continued emphasis on maintaining a high-quality, high-performing emergency service system. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners that the week of May 21st through 27th, 2023 be recognized as National Emergency Services Week in Forsyth County. And the Commissioners encourage its observation by all of its county residents and convey our deepest gratitude to our EMS professionals who serve our county every day. Adopted this 18th May of 2023. Thank you. And thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. All in favor of passing the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Is there any chance we can get all our
Whatever you wanna
EMS folks to get behind them?
You guys stand up. You can actually fill in back here.
Yeah, back here. I did just want to take a moment to say, while they're coming up here, thank you very much on behalf of the entire Emergency Services Department. There's a lot of emergency in the Emergency Medical Services Week here, as indicated. What you see coming up here is a result of the work that this body has done. This is 18 of our newest recruits that started 2 weeks ago, and they start EMT class on Monday at Forsyth Tech. That is a result of the work that you did to update the pay for EMTs in January. And we're working to start another 15 or so folks here in about 2 weeks, and the next group of academies that'll work on our staffing. And so absolutely appreciate everything you've done for us and the things that you continue to do. So.
Spin around with pictures.
I don't know, Todd, how you want to. Commissioner, come on over here.
You're good. You're good.
No, I'm good. Y'all are good.
You're good.
This is about y'all.
Cool.
All right, very good.
While they're moving away from the podium, I do want to recognize Mr. Dan Osmond, who's here. He is our former retired Director of EMS. Why don't you stand up, Dan, so we can say hello to you. Nice to see you. As some of you know, Dr. Lou Stringer was a longtime medical director for Forsyth County Emergency Services, actually between the years of 1972 and 1999. And sadly, just on Tuesday, he passed away. And in honor of Dr. Stringer's service to Forsyth County and a citizen, I'd like to ask you to just join me for a brief moment of silence, and then we'll actually have a proclamation for him. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. For our commissioners, there's actually a copy of the proclamation at your place. and I am going to read it and then ask for a motion and a second to adopt it. This is a proclamation recognizing the accomplishments of Dr. Llewellyn Lou W. Stringer, Jr., and his contributions to the field of emergency services. Whereas Dr. Lou Stringer was a native of Richmond, Virginia, and who made North Carolina his home for over 3 decades. Whereas Dr. Lou Stringer was an accomplished scholar who received an undergraduate degree from the University of Richmond, a Doctor of Medicine MD degree from the Medical School of Virginia, served as faculty at the Bowman Gray School of Medicine, and later served as an adjunct professor instructing on emergency medicine. Contributed to numerous medical articles and was a published author of several books, including Emergency Treatment of Acute Respiratory Diseases, a manual for ambulance and emergency room personnel. Whereas Dr. Lou Stringer served Forsyth County, the state of North Carolina, and the United States ably and with distinction in a variety of emergency service roles, including as Forsyth County's first medical director for emergency medical services from 1972 to 1999, as the architect of Forsyth County's initial paramedic course in 1974, he founded and served as medical director for Special Operations Response Team, SORT, a federally supported nonprofit disaster medical team that responded to disasters nationwide. Whereas Dr. Lou Stringer emergency services work extended into the federal government, where he served senior medical advisor to the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA division, developed a federal mobile disaster hospital model, and served on C-SPAN testifying before Congress on bioterrorism preparedness on January 12, 2001. Whereas community service was important to Dr. Lou Stringer and was evidenced by attainment of Eagle Scout status as a young person, serving his country in the United States military, receiving the John Burwell Excellence in EMS Award with North Carolina's Region 1, which includes Forsyth County, serving as a reservist captain in the Commission Corps of U.S. Public Health Service, being named Rotarian of the Year by the South Hill, Virginia Rotary Club, and being awarded induction into North Carolina's Order of the Longleaf Pine. Now therefore be it proclaimed that on this occasion of the passing of Dr. Llewellyn Lou W. Stringer, Jr., the Forsyth County Commissioners hereby recognize the exemplary service and accomplishments of Dr. Llewellyn Lou W. Stringer, Jr., and honor him for his outstanding and distinguished service to the United States of America, state of North Carolina, citizens of Forsyth County. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Plyler. In discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the meeting of May the 4th, 2023. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Plyler. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, do we have any calls or cards for the public session?
Mr. Chairman, we have 3 public speaker cards.
All right, thank you.
Jenny Easter, please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Jenny Easter, and physical address, 5120 Paramount Road, Hofftown, North Carolina, 27040. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jenny Easter, and I teach kindergarten in Forsyth County. After listening to the commissioners' meeting last week, I felt it necessary to come this week and voice my thoughts and recommendations before you hold the public hearing and vote, which I hope you will still adjust the timing of to a later time to allow more educators and public to speak at in person. While I may be a certified professional in our school system, I have been a long-standing advocate for our classified staff. Many politicians and the public think that classified support staff are glorified secretaries, filing papers and copying all day, when they are literally our co-teachers. They do special needs interventions, they teach our lessons when we have to do assessments, and they are used as substitutes when there are none. Mr. Plyler, I think you asked last week who are considered classified staff, and I wasn't sure if someone had informed you, but most of the time they consist of reading specialists, reading interventionists, office staff, teacher assistants, cafeteria workers, EC assistants, bus drivers, and district-employed custodians. You may not know this, but most of them carry a 2 to 4 year and sometimes a master's degree. Yet they work every day in our schools for half the pay that teachers make. I have been a teacher for 10 years in this county and once served as a director on the executive board of the Forsyth County Association of Educators. FCAE has advocated to you guys before to provide funding to bump our classified staff up so they were no longer living near the poverty line. Me coming today to request the same thing feels like a slap in the face to the advocates you have in this district and the workers you have pouring their heart and soul into our children's education every day. It blows my mind, as corrupt as our state legislator is in North Carolina, they actually did bump their hourly pay up to $15. But that's still not enough. And we need you to address the compression issue for our district so that they are adjusted to the years of experience and expertise that they have accomplished. Mrs. McManus stood up here and explained to you guys what we have needed in support staff since the pandemic hit. We have more special needs children than we have ever had. And we can't just keep laying off other in-house employees to fund that. We need to not wait for the state to fund it because it obviously has never come. So I hope that locally we can come together and adjust this for our district because it's been a big ask for decades. I hope and ask that you will take the next 2 weeks before you vote to listen and talk to our classified staff in our district to understand their situation and realize that we need to do something now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate her timing and getting in here because, as she said, we're just days away from approving next year's budget. I hope we can consider that.
Thank you.
Alan Daniel, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Alan Daniel, 100 Fernworth Court in Clemens. I too am here to address the budget, but I'd like to take it in a different direction. I understand that Dr. Martin has a long and distinguished career as an educator in the district, but it's a different world. It is an absolutely different world. This year, this school year, we have lost 4 students to gun violence. Not in school, in the community. About 9 years ago, this board closed the Juvenile Detention Center to save an estimated $158,000 to $223,000 a year. In recent times, in the last 2 weeks, there have been 2 incidents of juveniles arrested on gun or found on gun charges. They weren't arrested because juveniles can't be arrested. The Sheriff's Department requested secure custody orders, and it was declined. Now, reread that juvenile to say student, because every juvenile in this district is a student. You don't know who that juvenile is because they can't tell you. But now imagine this. You're a teacher, and you're sitting there looking at the Saturday news, and you see that a 19-year-old was arrested for eluding the police, and the headline says, "Weapons of Mass Destruction." And you recognize the name as a student in your class. And you go, wow. But then you walk into class on Monday morning, and guess who walks in your classroom? And yes, that happened 2 weeks ago. We don't have support staff. The recommendation from all the powers that be that know is that one guidance counselor should serve 250 students. At my children's high school, one guidance counselor serves about 360. It's a pretty good school. At another high school in the district, that has way worse record than West Forsyth does in behavior, same number. Doesn't make sense. The sheriff is fond of saying you all have allocated him $200,000 to do community outreach, while he has $1 million to do animal control. What's wrong with that picture? We absolutely have to do something to support not only our students in school, but we are demanding far too much of our teachers to expect them to do everything. So not only do we need to support the school budget, the support staff in the schools, but also the support staff in the community. Mental health, physical health, meals, all of that needs your support. Penny wise, but pound foolish. Okay, saving $150,000 a year, and now we have no place to put kids without sending them to Taylorsville, where they can't see their family, they can't see an attorney, they can't get the services they need. It needs to be local. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, third person.
Shayna Heilbron, please come forward.
I know I'll mess it up, so. Shayna Heilbron, 6077 Showell Circle in Pofftown, representing Crossnor Communities for Children at 1001 Ronaldo Road. Thanks. Good afternoon. I'm here today to share a little more information with you about Crossnor's Youth Independent Living Program. We currently have a request pending as part of the special appropriations request, and just wanted to provide some additional information. Crossnor is a recognized leader in helping children who've experienced trauma to reclaim, rebuild, and reimagine their future. I'm here to talk to you about the challenges faced by older youth in the foster care system. As you know, the system's designed to provide safe and stable homes for children who cannot live with their biological parents. However, the system's not always perfect. Not sure who said turning 18 is a magic switch that turns you into an adult. Either is 21. Young adults in North Carolina, and particularly here in Forsyth County, who leave the foster care system without achieving permanency are at risk for some pretty significant negative outcomes. Those include things like homelessness, incarceration, poverty, low prospects for employment, and others, as you can see on my slide. Our solution at Crossnor is the Youth Independent Living Program. The Youth Independent Living Program is really geared towards young people 16 to 21, but also those who are 22 to 26. The program really has 4 goals. The first is housing, so providing safe and stable housing where our young people can receive the support they need and also work towards independence. Our second goal is in connecting to activities. As you know, young people in our community, the more opportunities that they have to connect socially, culturally, educationally, and recreationally is going to lead to greater life experiences. And that's important, particularly for children who have experienced trauma. Our third program goal in the YIL program is to create connection to our community services. Agency partners like Goodwill can help with workforce development opportunities. The YWCA is great for health and wellness, and also staying connected to the clinical services that are offered at Crossnor, whether that's trauma-focused cognitive behavioral health or counseling and therapy around anxiety or depression. Staying connected to those services and connecting to those services is really important. And finally, independence. We really work to assist our young 16 to 26-year-olds in creating the plan necessary for that transition so that they can be successful as they go into the community or, and managing their own life and future. I'd like to share quickly one story. Shakia is a current individual in our Youth Independent Living Program. She's 19. She came into the system at 16, joined the Crossnor Communities for Children Family, spent 3 years, graduated from high school, and through our work was able to connect with some programs in the community around art, culture, which really led to her passion. She recently began taking classes at Forsyth Tech and has been able to tie that passion for art into some business programming, and we're very excited about that.
Could I just, we're past third of our time, could you sort of begin to wrap up? Thanks.
Here's the wrap up and the funding request. We're asking for $126,000 to really support the gap funding in this program. We receive funding from Medicaid and DSS that supports about 50% of the $1 million program. So we raise privately the other $500,000. So hope that this commission will consider through our special appropriation request that $126,000. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Mr. County Manager, I think we're ready for the regular meeting agenda.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. We do have some business items for consideration this afternoon. We have reviewed these in briefing sessions a couple of times, and so hopefully have answered all the questions that might have come up. So I'll go ahead and dive into it. We've got several budget and finance items. Item 6 is a resolution approving a revision to the fiscal year 2022-23 Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding plan. You've got an associated budget ordinance amendment that appropriates a fairly small amount, $4,802 to family services for trauma assistance and counseling program.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Plotter. Mr. Plotter. There a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 7 has two parts. It's an amendment to the 2020 PAYGO Capital Projects Ordinance that transfers funds from the Economic Development Reserves to S.G. Atkins Community Development Corporation for the shared use kitchen project and improvements to Smith Reynolds Airport. And then item B, you've got 2022 PAYGO Capital Projects Ordinance transfers funds from Economic Development Reserves and Economic Development Projects to multiple economic development projects. This really puts some dollars that you set aside for economic development activities. Mr. Chairman, I can go down the list of those real quickly, or I'll just leave it open for the board to make a motion, however you want me to do that.
You need to take we've seen the list once. Anybody want to hear a quick list? Hearing none.
Okay.
Ready. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Plyler. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Agenda item 8 is a resolution approving authorizing execution of a grant agreement between Forsyth County and the North Carolina Department of Transportation. It funds an airfield lighting rehabilitation Smith Reynolds Airport program. This would appropriate $10,181 and gets us under a deadline where the grant is expiring.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we have two ARPA funding contracts for consideration. Item 8 is a resolution approving execution of an agreement with the Young Women's Christian Association of Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Incorporated to purchase a minivan and replace or repair buses for the Best Choice Center with the ARPA funds. You got an associated amendment or contract amendment that would appropriate $85,000 for this purpose.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Plyler. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, item 10 is a resolution approving execution of an agreement with Second Harvest Food Bank of Northwest North Carolina. It provides workforce development training, financial assistance for underemployed folks with the American Rescue Plan Act funds. You've got an associated amendment that basically authorizes the transfer of funds from the budget reserve in the amount of $152,250.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler, second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we've got a number of contracts for consideration. Item 11 is a resolution selecting and authorizing the execution of a contract with LS3P Associates Limited to provide professional design services for the 3820 North Liberty Street hangar door project in an amount not to exceed $52,875.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item 12 is also an airport item. It's a resolution selecting and authorizing execution of an agreement with WC Construction Company LLC to act as the design builder and provide design and pre-construction services for the Smith Rental Airport Car Wash project, really to support the rental car agencies that are there at the airport. And you've got B and C, which are both budget ordinance amendments that basically outline $84,000 not to exceed for that purchase.
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Item 13 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and East Coast Oxygen and Hydro Testing Incorporated to provide medical oxygen cylinder exchange and rental. After a bid process, they are the lowest responsible bidder for a contract not to exceed $250,000 for these services over a 3-year period.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler. I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item 14 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a contract with Miller Tree Service Incorporated for at-risk tree removal, basically the difficult trees to get out at a variety of Forsyth County parks in an amount not to exceed $115,000.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler. Second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, item 15 is a resolution awarding and authorizing a contract for the purchase of 2 Class 3 type ambulances to Northwest Emergency Vehicles Incorporated, or LLC, in an amount not to exceed $537,214.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler. Second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And item 16, resolution authorizing execution of amendment to an agreement with Rico USA for on-site managed print and mail services. Year one amounts just $10,000 over the period of the contract not to exceed $50,000.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item 17 and 18 are both property matters. They actually had a few questions, so if I could get Kirby, wherever you are, to come on up and just make sure we provide any clarification. Item 17 is a resolution authorizing publication of an offer to purchase a strip of county-owned real property by negotiated offer advertisement in the upset bid procedure, a portion of Horizon Park property. Kirby, I believe you had an update based on a question that Commissioner Linville had asked.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. Appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you again today. Commissioner Linville had asked a couple of questions about the value, really, of the Harger family property. And if you'll recall, they're offering to purchase a strip of Horizons Park, which is located next to their property. So really 2 reasons they're doing that. One, it'd really give them a little buffer against park operations. And 2, it really squares their property up with what really is a more natural property line, which is a hedgerow there. They've offered $5,500 for that property. They did that by researching ag land values on the tax rolls of nearby properties. They felt like $5,500 for a little over half an acre was a fair offer. Commissioner Linville asked us to consult with the tax office to look at that value. And it looks like the tax office has come back, you see in the memo, and said, when that property is subdivided, it will remain institutional public property, which is the current zoning classification. Now, it's a commercial zoning classification, so it has a little bit of a higher value there. If it's rezoned as ag land to match the Harger's property, they feel like a fair offer is around $9,000 for that subject property, which is up again from the $5,500. That's based on an increase in sales they're seeing in rural land values. That's not something the Hargers can see when they look online. So there's a little bit of a difference there. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
I don't have any questions now. Mr. Chairman, I haven't expressed any other than those questions last week. thoughts about this one. It's been a while since I had been by there, and so I finally made time to go by there yesterday. And without going into great detail, and I can go into some, I moved to reject the offer. One, it was less than even what the tax office talks about, and there is there is a good buffer there that serves the owner of the property beside of it. And I remember some years ago, I don't remember how long it's been, across the road, whenever we put it was a residence over there, we could put some kind of, it was Frisbee right there beside this man's lot. And they were, somehow or another, the Frisbees was always getting over there, and the person didn't care much about that, complained. So apparently we didn't have good enough buffer. This is a good buffer. It looks like it's pretty good sized trees there. I didn't get out and walk the property. I just looked at it to refresh my memory. So my motion is to reject the offer, and further, I don't see that the county has a need to sell the property, and I'm not suggesting to negotiate.
Is there a second to Mr. Linville's motion to reject the offer?
I'll second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhunt. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously to reject the offer and not negotiate further.
I did, just on another note, I was looking around, and I guess it was a year ago, or maybe a little bit more. Well, I know there was a year ago, and I'm looking around, and I think I told y'all there was a nice cabin being built. Well, it was not finished at that time, as I recall. Well, I went by again yesterday, and it was finished, and it's it is the nicest one that I know of in the county, and that belonged to the manager. The only thing that concerns me is there's this sawmill that's down there beside of him, and I don't mind him sawing, but I got enough things to worry about without the manager working at a sawmill. It's too dangerous. Be careful. Be sure you got some guards on that big blade.
Right. I did get a permit for that cabin,
Well,
just so you know. That's
right.
I would expect so.
I'm not worried about that part.
That's right. All right. Number 18, Kirby.
Okay, great, thank you. This is the Carver School Road property. This is an old tax foreclosure. The board has a $20,000 offer on. The tax value is $11,200 on the rolls right now. And Commissioner Woodbury, you had asked some questions about affordable housing. I have not gotten in touch with the offerer, the bidder on this, but our economic development office did reach out to some of the folks that do that type of thing, and have not heard back from any interest in those type of developers like Habitat or something like that on this property.
Is there a motion to?
Chair, I just wanted to respond. Thank you. I appreciate you getting the follow-up. I will say that District A has probably one of the greatest needs for, quality, affordable housing, and I would like to, really sort of appeal to the commission to, be as helpful as we possibly can to the city, which is, this District A part of our county, to kind of help with this, because I think ultimately, as a whole county, we'll start to see some unintended and, unfortunate consequences, because people just don't have the housing that's needed, especially with inside of the county. And so I'm not sure how much more you can proceed to trying to reach out to the person, but I guess ultimately, ideally somebody can just outbid and that would upset the process, correct?
Yes, ma'am. This offer would be subject to advertisement and upset bid. So anybody that's offering the required amount could upset it during that 10-day process.
So the next question I have is just in relation to the current tax value of the $11,200, and then the person who is making the offer, offered the $20,000. And I'm not sure, and you can clarify, but I do know that at least 5 years ago, there were some concerns from the citizens in that area about a low tax assessment of properties, which created a lower tax value. And there were some questions around inequity, and that would create a scenario ultimately where people could come in and buy the properties over in that community undervalue, and sort of start to create an imbalance of home ownership.
I apologize. I'm not sure quite what to respond to in that. I can get some information from our tax office if you have questions about the value. This is held by General Services right now, so we simply look at it as a real estate deal. I give the tax value as really a reference point for what they say the value is right now in comparison to the offer that you have. And so I'm happy to get more information on the value if you like. But since it's government property, it is non-taxable right now. And it's not that they don't specifically look at that. I'm sure they do, but they don't spend as much time on that value as they would on taxable property.
Well, and the bid that we actually, the 20, I think you had conversation with the purchaser, the potential, the one person of interest,
Yes,
and
sir.
they actually agreed to say, you made it clear that the last of these we've had, we've certainly, we're not in the business of giving away property here. We want the fair value for the county that we now, since we own it. So I felt like the 20,000 was a fair offset, and it is going to be housing. Looks like he's proposing to build 1 to 2 houses on it. It's not going to be smaller units or other kind of issues, but I don't know what the zoning is there in terms of getting any more subdivisions and, 2 houses and a half is a quarter of an acre lot per house, which is fairly small, and it seems like that's, I think that proposal is fair. I'm okay, but if anybody else says
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
got a motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Have one no. Motion carries 6-1.
This has got to go through the upset bid process, and if there's something that comes up, the bid can still be rejected. It's just putting it forward.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and generally speaking, that does affirm a value, and we actually go through some steps to make sure that folks are aware that, there's an upset bid that's been received. So anyway, very good. Agenda item 19 really just closes us out as a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor and collector in the amount of $560.80 from the Board of Equalization and Review.
Move approval.
Second.
That was a motion by Commissioner Plyler, second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Chairman, before we close out this session, if I may, with the board, if the board would oblige opening back up the public session. I think we had some miscommunication with the Washingtons. They're here today for a 3-minute presentation. So if we could allow them 3 minutes, I would appreciate it. With Holman Ministries.
Okay, sure. No
Thank
problem.
you.
3 minutes. If you just give us name, address, and we'll just have our normal 3-minute communication.
Yes, Barry Washington, 3916 Old Lexington Road. Certainly a privilege to be here with you today. Our last time that we were here, we were invited here by the chairman of the board to open up in prayer. So today we come just to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing. Right now we have a pending application before the commissioners today, so it's an honor to be with you today. We are Holman Ministries, and we have a program called Housing for Our Heroes. And what it entails is that we have homeless veterans today in Forsyth County on the street, many of them who have served the country and honorable discharged, but find themselves needing residence. And for a few years here, we've been working along providing permanent residence for these ladies and men. And today, we are wanting to share with you our new idea, and that is transitional housing for our veterans. Just want to show you a few pictures while you could show them about.
Yeah, I'm Camilla Washington, and what we're doing now is we're opening up a transitional housing. We've done the permanent housing for over 10 years. As you can see on the screen, this is a new house. It's an 8-bedroom, 7-bathroom home. And we're looking to put veterans, the homeless veterans there as they transition into permanent housing. And so that's why we're in need of the funding. Again, we've done this for over 10 years, and we see that there's still a need in the community to house our homeless veterans. The last one that we did, as you can see these pictures, this is a new construction. The last one we did, first of all, let me thank you, the county commissioners, for putting the brick in the foundation of the last house off of Thurman Avenue. And we could not have done it without each and every one of you. So again, we want to thank you. We got that house completed right before Christmas. And a veteran and his wife are living in that house. And they had been homeless for well over a year. He had been sleeping in the car. Him and his wife had to separate because they had no housing. So I just want you all to know that personally from us, what a blessing it was for that family to get them off the street, to get them out of a car, and to bring that family, that husband and wife, back together again. So again, the pictures that you see up there, this house, it has 2 laundry rooms. It has 7 bathrooms and 8 bedrooms. And we're looking to start out with put maybe 5 to 6 men in that house. It is off of West Clemensville Road, and we're now putting bedding in there now. It costs to furnish that house, so we're taking our time doing that, and we're just so excited about it. We want the community to be excited about what we're doing, because veterans, I mean, gosh, they went out, they did so much for the country, and this is the least we can do, especially in the city of Winston-Salem. We'd love to be a model for other cities in the state of North Carolina of what we're doing, and that we understand that each and every one of us cannot go out there and put our hands to the plow, but when you get involved, you might as well be out there because you're making a difference in the community.
I'm impressed that it has 7 bathrooms. How many people live in there?
It will be 6.
6.
Yes.
So it's more than 1 bathroom for everybody.
Yes. We want our veterans to be comfortable as they transition into permanent housing.
I'd feel the same way.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. May I ask a question?
Oh, one other follow-up question.
A question regarding the nature of the transitional nature of the housing. Is there a time limit? One of the questions that I've heard raised by housing advocates for homeless folks is that you can inadvertently create a problem if someone gets into housing and then they have a time limit requiring them to move out after they've established a support network at that location. So is there a time limit, or how do you address it as in a transitional nature?
Very good question. We're starting out at between 6 and 12 months, depending on that particular veteran and how they transition. We will provide wraparound services for them, called job readiness, a variety of services we want to provide for them in order for them to be self-sufficient and independent. So that is a good question. It's not in concrete, but Basically, we can extend it, but we like to end it with a year. And what we've seen in the past, these houses that we provided for permanent residents here, we also provided wraparound services for them as well. They came in there with nothing. Today, many of them have vehicles, they have their own job, and a couple of them went on and purchase a house or either start renting on their own. So we want to provide this by collaborate. We have a number of organizations that we collaborate with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further business. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Plyler. I'll second that. Let's adjourn for, what do we need, about 10 minutes max? 10 minutes max. There we go. Right. Now we'll resume with our briefing for the May 26th, and excuse me, it's a briefing. Yes, for our Thursday, June 1st meeting. I apologize. Okay, we have two discussion items today. One, we're going to hear about the budget and property update that Gordon Wash is going to provide for us, and I apologize, had my microphone off. And we have two discussion items today, the budget and property update and the legislative update that our county attorney, Gordon Watts, is going to provide both of those. And then our county manager, you can come on up, Gordon. Our county manager will actually go over the proposed items for the next meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the PCCI matter, I don't really have any new information for you. We discussed this a few weeks ago, and I believe you have a copy of the memo, which I handed you out then. Basically, as you remember, the facts were in 2019, this board granted a $600,000 loan, a repayable loan to PCCI to tear down the old Budget Inn and redevelop that site. They are now ready to do that, but in the agreement that from 2019, they were required, and they offered this, and the board accepted, to create 72 houses. At least 25% would need to be rented to residents with income at or below 30% of the area median income, which is also known as AMI. The remainder would be at or below 60% of AMI. Low-income residents would have to remain there. The requirement would be for 50 years, so it'd be a long-term requirement that it'd be low-income housing. And the loan would be due no later than May 1st, 2023, which was a couple weeks ago, obviously. After that, beginning May 1st, the interest is 8% annually, which is $4,000 a month. So that interest is now running at the rate of $4,000 a month. 2 months ago, you received a request from PCCI to forgive the loan, forgive the $600,000 loan and the interest. They are now proposing to build 10 fewer units, 62 units as opposed to 72 units, but they would still maintain the requirements about the low income, the 25% at or below 30% of AMI, and the remainder at or below 60%. And they would still retain the 50-year requirement that it remain low-income housing. So that's where we are right now. And so, the county has at least 4 options, and there can be more options if you want. The first option would be to maintain the agreement as it is right now, and that would require PCCI to build the 72 units. Okay, another option would be to maintain the original agreement and still collect the interest, but allow them to build 62 units as they proposed. Another option would be to extend the payment date to a certain date in the future. I believe they've indicated that that could be sometime in the fall of this year, and to forgive the interest until then. So, for example, just making up a date, if they repaid you by October 1st, there would be no interest. And the final option would be, as they requested, would be to forgive the loan and the interest and allow 62 units to be constructed. So, and there, you can come up with many different options to that, but those are just some possibilities. Anything beyond what we have right now, the 72 units paying interest, would require the board to act, because you've already acted in the past, and those are requirements in the agreement and in the a deed. So we would have to change those if you want to do anything different. So I really don't have any new information for you. This is an opportunity for you all to discuss it, if you'd like. I'm happy to answer any questions.
In the end, it all comes down to money. I was thinking about the 62-unit option that you mentioned that would forgive the loan, the interest rates. What's the thinking on that? Because in the last election, the two words that were used quite often were affordable housing. Is that what this is all about?
It is about affordable housing, and the thinking is whatever discussion you all want to have.
Okay.
And by the way, we have folks here, Linwood Davis is here, and if they're available to answer any questions that you may have too. So if there are additional clarifications, I appreciate Gordon's review of 4 possible scenarios, which I think that covers I mean, there are other options, but I think that does provide a good sampling that there could be variations from those that could work. Are there any other questions for Gordon or Linwood Davis? I think I understand the parameters. We just have to reach some agreement issues on where we are.
Chair Martin, I think it would be
June 1st.
beneficial for the public to maybe know why we went from 72 to 62 units, but still the same amount of money is being asked for.
Well, he can come talk about it. As far as the amount of money, we have already loaned them a fixed amount. And it's their issue of paying the fixed amount back. But I think there is an explanation that can be offered for the reduction in units.
Certainly, and thank you very much. And my name is Linwood Davis. I live at 812 Sylvan Road. I'm a real estate developer, and I work with PCCI, Peters Creek Community Initiative, the collaborative that has gotten together, that is working to redevelop the former Budget Inn that is there. On the specific question of why did we go from 72 units down to 62 units, going through the process of actually going through the design into where we can actually build permits that we would turn into the city of Winston-Salem. The property itself is not large enough to actually have 72 units. We had to scale it back. There are going to be restrictions. It's a constraint on the size of the property, and particularly, for instance, how many parking spaces we need per each unit that are there. So originally we thought that we could have 72 units, but we scaled back to 62 units, and that's what can max out and fit on that property. It's not as if we could put another story on and add more property there because we don't have other room for other parking spaces.
Thank you.
That's good. Any other questions?
A follow-up?
Sure.
Can you explain why the original calculation thought that you had enough space? And then it turned out on re-examination that...
How do we get from 72 down to 60? Are you asking to elaborate that, or are you asking about, sorry.
Your original estimate that
We could have
believed that you could do 72, obviously, it was not made in a vacuum. It was made from looking at the property. And I think the question becomes, in the first estimate of 72, why wasn't the lack of the space for parking places acknowledged and recognized then? I think that's the question.
That is a good question. And in the life of the project, I became involved. There was another developer that was involved about 4 years ago that was originally working with PCCI that was not able to be able to come to a successful outcome for them and figure out how to finance it. And in their original thinking, and when they originally worked with the county, they had a number of 72. How they came up with 72 and came up with that number back in 2019, I don't know. But I've been involved for the last 4 years and extensively. And we've actually been very successful. As a matter of fact, we were given an award last year of $12 million in federal income tax credits to finance this property. That's why it's actually a real viable project today. And in fact, we've, just so everybody is aware, this is a Forsyth County project. Developers are here, PCCI. It is originated by the community. The builder is downtown. Our civil engineer, we're working with Steve Causey, who's in town, that's here. Our architects are here in town. In fact, we've actually been able to pull together all of our plans that we would like to submit plans for permitting to the city of Winston-Salem, probably maybe before Memorial Day, right after Memorial Day. So we've done a heck of a lot of work to figure it out. How they originally came with 72, I don't know. That's before my time.
It sounds like what you're doing, being polite to the original, attempted developer, was they just made a mistake.
And
They had a respected developer that was here before working with them, and how they backed into that. These large deals on funny sides of properties where there are existing buildings that are there, it can be a little bit cumbersome. I don't know, they made an arrangement with the county, they made a deal with the county, there's a contract with them for 72. That 72 came from, I can't exactly say, but what I can tell you is we can build 62.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So, Chair Martin, I would kind of ask about the, why ask for a loan versus try to apply maybe for ARPA dollars?
Well, of course, this was before the pandemic, and PCCI was working to try and take care of they wanted to do what they could to take down the property, meaning buy the property, as well as there was the Budget Inn hotel that was on it, which was blight, and it was something that was a problem for the neighborhood. It was full of crime, and they worked with the county and they worked with the city. They raised, the city contributed $600,000. The county was willing to loan $600,000, and that gave them the funds necessary to buy the property and actually take down the building that was there.
Mr. Chairman, for full disclosure, I have not been in favor of this project, but for the four options, I would choose option 2, which is to maintain the original agreement, collect interest until the loan is repaid, but allow 62 low-income units. I just don't think we ought to be in the bank business with tax dollars. I don't think we should be loaning money. And if we do loan money, then the interest should be paid. So I would be in favor of option 2.
We appreciate everybody's consideration. This is an economic development issue for the city, for the county of Forsyth County.
Any other discussion? Please.
By way of background, I'll note that this project is in the Southwest Ward that I had represented on the City Council for a number of years. And this project was conceived by members of the community in this area and moved forward as an opportunity to redevelop a site with quality, workforce, affordable housing, of which the area, the city, and the county is in dire need of more units now. I was a strong supporter of the project and remain that way. A substantial part of the reason that it has not moved forward before this point is that the state housing finance eligibility criteria were unfavorable to the location. After, I believe, 3 years of attempting to get this on the list of finance-approved projects by the state North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, surprisingly, late in the process, this 4th year, they changed their criteria so that now this site was eligible. Those involved in the site's development as workforce affordable housing scrambled and got an application in under the wire, and it was approved. So that's where the $12 million in financing bonds backing came for, at this point, after 4 years of frustration, and represented the domino falling in place that allowed the project then to really pick up steam and move forward. I think this is an opportunity at low cost to the county taxpayers to get a project on the ground in a fairly rapid fashion at this point. And it would be a shame for us to lose that. I think that the county made a good move when it agreed to make a loan for the project. I would be happy to go with a more active county involvement in it, but in the absence of that, I would favor option 3 to extend the due date, not add $4,000 a month cost on the project, and allow the 62 units to be constructed. So just a pitch for that option.
And remind me again of the city's additional subsequent contribution to this project after the award was given from the state?
That's right. If I may give you just a little bit more color as what's going on and how are we here now and what has happened. And Commissioner Bessie is correct. It's an annual application cycle that you go through to get federal tax credits to subsidize this type of property, which we got 12 million. And we had to apply for that in January of last year, so 2022. That's 15 months ago. And when we applied for those tax credits, we had to underwrite the project for how much would it cost. And within that, we had including paying back the county their $600,000. We fully understand that. We appreciate the importance of contracts. We look around us, people are canceling contracts, and we think that's a disaster. You need to live to your commitments. So we fully understand that. Problem is, when you apply for it in January, they actually, normally you would find out if you received that in the summertime, late summertime. We actually didn't learn that until the end of October of last year. And so when we underwrote the project with being able to pay back the county, all last year, if you recall, we had record inflation and just a massive, massive jump in interest rates that have come up. It didn't blow a $600,000 hole in our budget. It blew a $4 million hole in our budget. There was no way that this project was going to be able to go on. We weren't going to be able to pay anybody. And the recourse was we were going to have to give the property back to the county, and you would own a piece of property on Academy in Petersburg. So what we did is when we won the award, we knew exactly what our problem was. And the first place for us to be able to turn, which was the most effective, was to go to the city. The city has provided an additional $3.2 million to help us fill that gap that we had. We had a remaining gap of about $500,000. We're coming to the county and we're asking for relief for that $600,000 to help make the project whole. So that's actually how we got here. We're not interested in canceling contracts. We're not interested in y'all being a bank, but we did we were there were about 24 out of about 150 different applications in the state that received an award last year. This was the only chance that we could get it. And we, like I said, we brought in millions of dollars into the county. And, but with the record, everybody understands the inflation. We all go to the grocery store. Everybody understands interest rates. If you're looking to buy or sell a house, it has been a disaster last year. And so the city very nicely gave us some relief at the beginning of this year. And to help make the project whole, that's what we're doing. We're asking for relief from the county.
What is your cycle on the actual, have you actually bid this project? And I don't know if you may not be bidding it for that matter. I'm not sure. I guess you're required because it's a government project. You probably are required, I assume.
We're not required. We're going to use the same builder that we've used on the past 14 projects that we work with. It's almost we have no financial relationship with them, but there are specialized builders in this industry that can comply with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency rules. And we'll use Rehab Builders, which is located right on 4th Street, right here in downtown.
And so they've given you a firm price.
We'll have a firm price in place, and we will go through the permitting phase, and we will probably close. We've received 2 terms, so we received tax credits. Those tax credits don't build buildings, cash build buildings. We sell those tax credits. We've got 2 term sheets now in place to sell the tax credits for the price that we need to make it happen. And we would probably close on the property and sell the tax credits and a construction loan probably by Labor Day is when we're on track to do it. We have to get our permits in place to be able to do that. We'll submit our permits within probably the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I appreciate you continuing to share that information. I just wanted to be on the record to say that I progressively support the 4th option, but in my opinion, the most human rationale behind it is that so many of the citizens of Forsyth County who may not have property, but they pay into the sales tax revenue, make $1,200 a month. You're offering housing at $800 possibly a month. And that's $400 you're living off of for the rest of the month after you pay your rent. And I just ask us to think along those lines. How many of us can live off of that amount of money after you pay your rent? And to me, we have to maybe start to think outside of what we normally do to meet the crisis of the majority of the citizens that sustain this county every single day by working in our classrooms, working in this building, and just working throughout this community to make sure that, again, we are a strong and viable county in North Carolina.
I appreciate that. And again, we're bringing in $12 million in federal funds to bring this off. Now, this county has already paid $600,000 out here. It's not like they're going to have to come out with an additional $600,000. It's for giving a loan that we give. But it is pennies on the dollar for what you're getting in return.
Any other discussion? We've had preferences expressed for 3 of the 4 options. Is there anything else we can
When do
certainly...
you want to make a decision on it?
That's it. Well, if we're following our schedule, this would be, actually, we would brief again next Thursday if there are additional questions, and it would be on the agenda on June the 1st, 2 weeks from today, for us to make a decision 2 weeks from today.
Okay, I'll have your answer by then.
We'll be available anytime.
I'm in that area too. I got it. Did you have something else to add to this, Gordon?
No, I was just going to say, this is not really on for first briefing, so it could be the June 15th cycle, but that's up to you if you want to skip the first briefing.
Yeah, I think well, we're 2 weeks away. I mean, I think it can be on the briefing agenda, and I think we need to resolve the issue. I mean, I think we need to resolve it and resolve it. Surely we can by June the 1st, and if my memory is, that's the way we left the discussion before several weeks ago, is that we try to resolve this by the end of May.
Yeah, staff will just need direction because typically we get out a finished agenda by Tuesday. So we'll just need direction because right now I've got 3 votes for 3 different options. So.
Well, I think that the staff task here is to simply lay out those options. I think, like I said, I think those are pretty inclusive. I think it's a matter of laying out the options, and we need to select one that there's 4 votes to support. I'm not sure there's 4 votes to support any of them at this point, so that's a matter to determine.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll move that this be placed for second briefing on the next Thursday's calendar, and the staff be asked to present the 3 options for which there was support, suggested with an eye toward having it on as an action item on June 1st with the disposition and the pleasure of a majority of the board.
Yeah, we'd be actually adding it today onto the briefing for that cycle, and I'd be glad to second that. Is there any discussion of that?
We're in a briefing, we can't.
I think we are, but
That's
it's
fine.
either I think it's giving direction, and I'm going to assume there's a consensus about giving direction that if we had those 3 options available, we can act on this on June the 1st. That's where I am.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Mr. Davis a question. I think you did a marvelous job in explaining your position and where you're going. What, in the end, when the sun goes down today, what would make you comfortable, something that you can deal with without staying awake at night trying to figure out how you're going to get it done?
Well, we just came through a pandemic, and I was able to pull together $12 million. So I stay up a lot, worrying about a lot of different things. If you're asking me what's our baseline, I think that's what you're getting at there. Our strong preference is for it to be forgiven.
Good. Thank you.
And, Mr. Chair, forgive me for making the error of trying to make a motion during a briefing session. I apologize.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of a consensus of when we're going to get this discussed. Yes, and acted on. We had a good discussion today. Appreciate Gordon's options. I think we're all good for voting on this on June the 1st. We're good. Okay. Righty. Thank you, Linwood. Appreciate it.
All right, I think unless the county manager tells me otherwise, the next discussion item is regarding a couple different related items involving the General Assembly legislative priorities. The first one, I believe the clerk has handed you out a couple of single-page handouts from me. The first one relates to Smith Reynolds Airport and a bill that started off as de-annexation. That was not on the county's legislative goals for this year. It was introduced by a couple of legislators. That is being substituted out. The de-annexation language is being taken out of that bill and replaced with a provision that would provide a 50% tax exclusion for real and personal property at a legacy airport as defined by the statute, and that's just the statute defining legacy airports, which briefly are airports established before 1945 with a runway or terminal building still in existence that started before 1945 and a runway of over 6,500 square feet that's had an impact on the state of North Carolina. So Smith Reynolds Airport has been designated as a legacy airport, and I had added to that language that would state that it was in a county with a minimum population of 350,000 and a maximum population of 1 million, and that it's also within the corporate limits of a municipality. That was to make sure there aren't any extraneous airports that are caught by this who don't want to be part of this tax exclusion. So that was put before the legislators, and it was sent to bill drafting. And so I've been in conversation with a staff member there, and he was concerned about the population. He thought that might not be copacetic with the courts. And so he just wanted to say, or he was proposing, we were brainstorming that it just be limited to legacy airports. And my point was that it really ought to be narrower than that, because the reason we're doing this is because of the double taxation issue, the issue of being taxed by a city and also being taxed by a county. And so many airports, the Davidson County Airport, PTI outside of Greensboro, those are only taxed by the county. And so people with property, with equipment, businesses with equipment at the airport, businesses with airplanes, individuals with airplanes, they're paying more in tax to be at Smith Reynolds Airport than if they were somewhere else. And so what I proposed to him is, I said, if you want to take out the population, I think that's okay, but so what you have on your sheet is a red line version where it takes out the population, but it leaves the part about within the corporate limits of a municipality. So, we wouldn't want an airport that's only subject to county taxes have those cut in half, because that, again, would put us at a disadvantage. And so I think that would be acceptable language. They're still mulling that over in Raleigh, and the reason I'm bringing it to you today is just to make sure that is something that the board is interested in pursuing. We can always pull the plug on it if it's not something that's in your interest. The general thought behind it, and the chair can speak more to this than I can, but the general thought is to encourage businesses to locate at the airport and to encourage people to park their corporate jets at the airport and not to be at a disadvantage to neighboring airports. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about that.
That's an accurate description of the support for it, and it is something that had been discussed by this board prior to this year. So it's been the issue of the increased taxation and what it is costing us in economic development potential is pretty well documented. I think that's a lot of consensus around that. And you know, it clearly represents some loss of revenue for us and loss of revenue for the city. But there's also a belief that that will be recaptured with additional investments and taxes in the future. I'm assuming everybody's good with leaving that as it is. And I did speak with Representative Lambeth earlier this week. There's been two conversations. I saw the mayor. The mayor had one yesterday morning. I had one on Monday late, and he said it's still alive, but it's because it is a little. There is a little heartburn around that bill because it is a statewide bill for this legacy airport condition, et cetera, and so. But he said he thought his conversation with the mayor on Wednesday was a little more positive. So we'll see.
Gordon, how many legacy airports are there?
Well, that's a good question. And the bill drafter was reaching out to DOT to confirm with them. What they've told us is 2. What they've told us is Smith & Reynolds Airport and Laurinburg-Maxon Airport down in Scotland County. And that's, as far as I can tell, that's not in the city limits because that's kind of remote. So I think this would only apply to Smith & Reynolds Airport. But the concern is that, you know, somebody may say, well, wait a second, my airport also qualifies. So, so as far as I know, 2, but there could be more.
So if I could weigh in, Chairman, I'm not in total agreement of this. There's a lot of conversations that we do need to have, despite it appears that, you know, I don't know how this will transition in Raleigh, but if we're making consensus for individuals at a 50% tax reduction rate, I think that the same should be yielded to those constituents in the surrounding area as well. So maybe we can talk about giving that some consideration as well, because previous to this agenda item, we were talking about not supporting to the $600,000 that other organization. So again, I think that what we need to do is just really be mindful of the precedents that we're creating on this board and think through that. Thank you.
I just think a big difference in that is the difference between private ownership and public ownership. And this particular bill only applies to public ownership, namely the county owns the property. It just happens to be in the city. But it is not issue, if you go beyond, you're entering into private ownership issues. And that part, I think from a standpoint of if you call relief because of whatever it is, that would be a true, from a legislative standpoint, and maybe perhaps our county attorney can just comment on this. I think that would be a real Pandora's box for the legislature, because everything on earth would be trying to come up with, well, because of this, we need to have we want a tax break kind of issue. So I think it's, I think it would just be something. In fact, at least Representative Lambert told me that would not ever be considered, and I suspect he is right about that.
You have a concern about equal treatment under the law, and so if you give one neighborhood a 50% tax break, then the next neighborhood will expect the same thing. So that would be a concern. But it is a valid point that Commissioner McDaniel raised, in that typically we are not in favor of tax exclusions, because property tax is how we fund a lot of our operations. If you all finish with that, I also passed out to you. You've seen this before, a one-page entitled Forsyth County Board of Commissioners 2023 Legislative Agenda. This is what we handed out to the legislators when they came here in January, and I just passed this out as a reminder. Many of you are going to be going to Raleigh next Wednesday, and so these are some of the things we've been asking the legislators for. We've gotten the most traction on the first three, and the first one being the request for Smith and Reynolds Airport for $39.5 million. And I brought my laptop up here because Mark has so many good projects. I couldn't remember them all, but they involve the south ramp pavement rehabilitation and expansion, noise and security barriers, which would help the neighbors, access road and site 4 development. That would allow an industrial site on space right next to the airport. Business incubator, hangar development to replace the old Quonset hut, and finally MRO hangar development, which would allow more business operations there at the airport. So that totals up to $39.5 million. Of course, you all know about the multipurpose ag building and agricultural park. That was a $10.3 million request. And one that was added because of a request from a legislator is help on the Tanglewood Clubhouse. As you know, that has been more expensive than we anticipated, so we've requested $5 million for that. And so those are the three items that we've gotten some good interest in from our legislators. So I just wanted to remind you of that. And I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Very good.
Thank you.
We're ready for a review of the items for June 1st.
All right, very good. I have that, and then we do have a closed session motion that I forgot to put in my advance email, so I apologize for that. I only have one item to review in detail, which is a public hearing item. It is a public hearing pursuant to provisions of North Carolina General Statute 153A-250 on a proposed ordinance granting a non-emergency ambulance franchise within Forsyth County. Brian Gallimore is going to come up and talk to us about that as he is coming up. A number of years ago, we tried to create kind of an orderly process for folks who would want to submit applications for ambulance franchises to us. And so we try annually to sort of open up an open period that kind of prevents some chaos around just people bringing us ambulance franchises kind of any time during the year. And so we sort of have an open period for that. Some years we get them, some years we do not. It is a regulated business in Forsyth County, and Gordon can probably describe that better for you. But Brian, in addition to a lot of things, kind of handles that for us, and so I'll turn it over to Mr. Gallimore.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Forsyth County Emergency Services requesting that MedX Medical Transport Incorporated be granted a non-emergent ambulance franchise in Forsyth County. MedX franchise application was reviewed and approved by Forsyth County Emergency Services Administration, as well as Deputy County Manager Damon Sanders Pratt and Finance Director Kyle Wolf. We feel that MedX organization will augment high-demand convalescent ambulance transport capabilities in Forsyth County, and as well assist Forsyth County Emergency Services respond to calls in a busy 911 system. MedX Medical Transport was founded in 2010 and headquartered in Ahoskie, North Carolina. MedX holds franchise agreements in 9 North Carolina counties performing non-emergent transport. All ambulances and staffed are certified by the North Carolina Office of EMS. Mr. Scott Martin will be the Western manager for the MedX franchise and is a Forsyth County citizen, as well as has experience in our 911 system as a paramedic, as well as managing a local former private ambulance provider. The addition of a third franchise ambulance provider will assist in lowering Forsyth County Emergency Service unit hour utilization, as well as better keep advanced life support ambulances available for higher acuity calls. Also, even with the high performance of both LifeStar and Providence, our hospital partners report difficulties in the ability to meet ambulance discharge demand. We feel that MedX will be an excellent addition into our emergency medical service system to work alongside Forsyth County Emergency Services and the other franchised ambulance providers in Forsyth County. Thank you for your consideration.
So we'll open up a public hearing on that, and Brian, you can kind of do that same kind of briefing, and then we'll hear comments from the public. So I will tell you, having grown up in eastern North Carolina, that'd be at Hosky, North Carolina. So
yes.
Anyway, sorry about that. So anyway, any questions?
How many units would they operate?
So initially, they will probably provide 2 to 5 trucks assigned for a non-emergent, the convalescent. So these are discharges from hospital, nursing home, transport, doctor's office, dialysis transports. But then they will be required, as the other franchise providers, to have 2 ambulances in the 911 system. One being 24/7, the other one being 6 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Good. Any questions or any other discussion?
Comments. Having had during parts of the pandemic 2 elderly parents who were in periodic need of transport between their skilled nursing facility and the hospital, I can attest that we need more reputable franchises in this area to provide that service. So it's good news.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian. All right, very good. All right, so I'll just quickly kind of run through the other items that we have. It's a fairly light agenda. Some of that is going to coincide with budget and some other things we have going on, so that is a little bit by design, to be quite honest. Special resolution, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is we will honor and reflect that. I've got a couple of budget and finance items. You've got a resolution designating the Piedmont Triad Regional Council as the lead agency on aging for Forsyth County for 2 forthcoming years. That is actually part of the Council of Governments for the new county commissioners. You may not be familiar. And then that affiliation, they actually provide services to us as the area agency on aging. And so you'll learn a little bit about that. Audit committee met and reviewed audit contract heading into next year, they will be auditing year end June 30th of 2023. And so even though the year end has not come to us yet, that work actually begins. And so, we will be moving forward with that. And so that contract's on. You've got one grant item, which is a grant between Forsyth County and North Carolina Department of Transportation, Division of Aviation, to fund the Aviation Career Education Academy, some funding coming from the state from that. And so Mark will bring that to you. Got 4 contracts for consideration, some airport as well. You've got an Avcon contract for the Taxiway Lima ramp design work. A local company who actually kind of grew up here in Forsyth County, actually some of the people who started that company were Forsyth County paramedics, is EMS Consultants, EMS Management and Consultants Incorporated. So you've got a resolution authorizing the execution of a 3-year agreement with them to provide medical billing and collection services. That was competitively bid, and so we'll bring you the results of that. Purchase of vaccines from Sanofi Pasteur, I hope I say that right. It's state of North Carolina contract pricing. And then there's a resolution selecting and authorizing execution agreement with Frank L. Bloom to act as design build and provide design and pre-construction service for the Highland Avenue Park project. That's our park that we funded partly with the ARPA dollars, I believe, or all with the ARPA dollars. And so we'll bring that to you. And then we had something you'll see on the Voluntary Ag District. I believe that's been moved to the next agenda cycle. A couple of refunds, and that's it. So it's a pretty straightforward agenda.
Sure. Good.
Is there no other discussion? Just close session.
Yeah, Commissioner Bessie and maybe Commissioner McDaniel had something they wanted to add at the end of this meeting. I know Commissioner Bessie does. Okay.
Maybe the same thing.
Okay.
One of the public hearing speakers earlier today referenced a suggestion for an evening hours budget hearing, and that reminded me that I had meant to ask about that. Apologies for not doing so earlier, but we have our public hearing now scheduled for Monday, June 5 at 2 in the afternoon. I'd like to ask if our colleagues would be at home to the suggestion of recessing that hearing after however long people want to talk, or up to 2 hours, and then reconvening for an evening session at 6 for as much as a couple of extra hours to give folks whose, schedules don't permit them to participate during the day a chance to comment on the budget. We did have good attendance earlier this year for sort of an open forum, evening hours. Thought that perhaps a quarterly opportunity would be reasonable. This would be about that time frame, and a good use of the time, I think.
Well, I can just make one comment. I'm not in favor of having two hearings, one at 2 o'clock and one at 6 o'clock. But I'm not, it doesn't matter to me particularly when it is, whether it's 2 or whether it's 6. But I just think we need to have one hearing, period.
I'd go with 6 in that case.
What are other people's feelings about that? Any big, I don't have a problem with coming to 6.
Well, the other public, are you suggesting, Mr. Chairman, to get, if another meeting is at 6, to somehow get them closer together, that public hearing?
Just have, instead of having our public hearing at 2, we could just move it to 6. We'd have one public hearing. It would begin at 6 o'clock, instead of 2 o'clock.
You're going to move the meeting later, yeah.
It's just moving it
later.
later.
Have a public hearing close to that too. However sequence you want to put it in.
I support that too.
I don't mind doing it for budget, but I'm not in favor of doing it quarterly. I've been here long enough that we've had meetings at 7, and we've had meetings at 6, and we've had meetings at 2, and I've never been able to see the difference in the folks coming to speak if they have something to speak about. I haven't seen the difference. But for the budget, if you all want to do it for the budget, it's fine with me.
So we'll go 6 o'clock on June the 5th. Looks like everybody's okay with that. All right. All righty.
Thank you.
Yes, but I would also like to address the fact of the quarterly meetings. I do understand your reservations, Gloria. However, I think we're in a new day and a new time, and we should at least give the constituents an opportunity to show up and show themselves approved before we just continuously say no. So again, it's a consensus on the board of at least 4 for us to make sure that we can manifest that in the future.
And I would just say lastly, Chair Martin, if I may, I think that obviously depending on who's here on the commission, adjustments to meetings, is just about, it's just a natural occurrence. And I think I'm probably maybe the only one that's still in the workforce, and it is, definitely not per se the burden on me, but I think the people who voted me in feels a certain, burden around, where is our representation if you can't be at the meetings because of a work schedule. So I would just like to, again, ask the commission to consider the different schedules that we all may have so that there is proper, representation of the citizens. Thank you.
I'd like to point out that I'm still in the workforce too, but I just come and go whenever I get ready to.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Everything has been said is duly noted. So would you like to make a motion that we go into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, before we do that, would you allow me to say one thing?
Yes, please.
We have talked about going to Raleigh. We've talked about this particular subject. I can't even remember what it was because there was no name on it, but I know you're workforce people. And would you please, we have different days, different times, give an accurate picture now of when we're going to meet next week, what time we're going to meet, where we're going to meet, and where we're going if we leave the building, and when we'll be back.
Well, nothing changes for next week.
What's on next week's schedule?
Well, excuse me, we do have I just should be quiet, let somebody know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We do have the Wednesday meeting. I forgot about that.
We've got a lot of meetings going, but we don't have anything in writing. I'd like to know if we can get it in writing before I walk out of here.
Commissioner Plyler, I'll answer your question. So we are leaving at 5:45 a.m. Wednesday morning,
This coming Wednesday morning.
coming Wednesday.
Now you see the reason, Mr. Chairman, why I'm asking this question. 5:45 in the morning, right?
Yes, sir.
In, and we're going to Raleigh, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, boy. Okay. Is that the only meeting?
It is going to be an all-day meeting.
Yeah, but don't we have other meetings to discuss other subjects? We've got,
So next Thursday, a week from today, we have our second briefing at 2 p.m.
all right, so Monday we go to Raleigh, right?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, Raleigh. Thursday, here.
That's
2
correct.
o'clock.
You're going to come here to the Government Center on Wednesday and Thursday, but we are leaving at 5:45 a.m. Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning, and then Thursday we'll be here at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, our regular schedule.
And ain't nothing else besides that before or after?
Those are the major events of next week.
Okay, so folks, we only have 2 meetings next week. One we go to Raleigh, one we stay here.
Correct.
And one we have to get up early in the morning.
Wear your tennis shoes. We'll be doing a lot of walking on Wednesday.
This is going to be exciting. What do we do when we get to Raleigh? Say hello to their legislators or?
We have meetings, or you have meetings with the General Assembly, all of our representation that day.
What time
And
do
it's
they
in
start? Will we have a schedule on that?
Yes, I have a schedule for you, and I'm going to send it out to everyone.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she's going to get you squared away. So I'm going to read the closed session motion. How about
Okay.
that? All right. I need to ask the board to consider a motion to go into closed session to discuss one matter to consult with the attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged pursuant to provisions of General Statute 143, 318.11A3, and since no other business to come before the board at this meeting, following the closed session, the meeting will be adjourned.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.